Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you have joined from. Welcome to another webinar from SQL Maestros. Quick check once again for the new folks. Hope you can hear me. If the audio is working good, you can see me, the video, and the screen. Now the screen shares a PowerPoint presentation, just the opening slide up there. Okay, as we always do, friends, let us know which country are you from? Where are you living right now? It's always good to see the global participation. The last webinar had about 150 people joining in from, if I am not wrong, maybe about 20 different countries. Let's see. And I'm going to call out the names. Okay, so starting from UK, India, then we have Spain. Okay, we have Austria. Okay, scrolling down, CH, is that what would CH stand for? If you could expand, then we have the US again, Brazil, welcome. Okay, okay, someone is not able to see the screen. I think you should be able to, not the management studio, but you can see the PowerPoint screen, I hope. And we have again a couple of folks from India. Great. We have someone from Dubai, Philippines, Switzerland. That is superb. Arizona, Ukraine, lovely. Italy, and oh wow, Sweden. So many of you from across the globe. It is always overwhelming to see this kind of global participation. Makes a lot of sense. Yes, how hi there from, okay, they're from South Africa. Always good to see global participation, and it is overwhelming, of course, because it makes me feel good that the content is valuable for all of you. Week by week, each week we are giving in a lot of new content. Okay. Looks like now can you all of you see, can you all of you can see the management studio now up there? I hope so. Yeah. Okay, great. I think it's working now for everyone. Okay, there you go. Let's zoom this. Now the PowerPoint is also working, right? Okay, let's begin. Friends, my name is Amit Bansal. I have been working with SQL Server since 1997. I started off with 6.5, little bit, then started more and then worked a lot on 7.0, 2000, etc. Starting from SQL Server 2005, I started focusing a lot on SQL Server performance tuning. In fact, in the last 20 years, my all my experience has been troubleshooting SQL Server performance, troubleshooting slowness, optimizing queries, getting to the root cause of performance bottlenecks, capturing performance data and using it to the advantage of speeding up queries. This is what I have been doing all in, all out. I had the privilege to work with more than 200 plus customers, a lot with Microsoft partners and customers, and of course, the community overall. I am a Microsoft certified master of SQL Server as well. And yes, this is what I do day in, day out. Sorry, I'm suffering from a bit of cold, so yeah, bear with me on that. And yes, I do a lot of training as well, a lot of content development and consulting. These are the three things that I do. And the fourth, and of course, an important thing is this kind of these webinars and the blog posts and a lot of videos on our YouTube channel, SQL Maestros. Before we begin with today's content, friends, I will just take about 2 to 3 minutes to quickly show you the masterclass recordings. Each day, we get a lot of emails where people ask about SQL Server performance tuning masterclass recordings. This masterclass is a 40 hours of deep dive content. It has been very popular over the years. It's a signature course from me, 40 hours, which I do just once a year, and I deliver it online. And this class, the live class, gets recorded, and then the recording is made available to the community worldwide. People ask, what is this content like? I mean, after you subscribe, you log in, how does it feel, and how do you browse and watch the content? So here is a very, very quick demonstration where I can quickly take you to this window and show it to you. For example, when you are on sqlmaestros.com, when and you have subscribed and you have your own exclusive login, your credentials, which is username and password, and when you log in, you can go to the masterclass and there you see start watching the recordings. And here are all these master classes, and you will focus on the most recent one, which says Performance Tuning Internals Masterclass Recording, January 2025 batch. And you have already subscribed, so let's not bother about this. This is where you got to click start watching, which will take you to the landing page where you have all the content, the sessions. So about 14 sessions, 4 hours each, 12 sessions were delivered, and 14 modules, as you can see. And whichever module you want to watch, you can just click on that. Let's say session 4, which has CPU performance monitoring and tuning and TempDB internals and tuning. So let's click on session 4, which will take you to the session 4 content. This is what session 4 content is like. And you can see this is your embedded video. And you can see this is about 1.5 hours. You can play the video here. You can run full screen. It's a very simple user interface with the video embedded in the Vimeo player. Then scroll down, you have the next video. Likewise, you have content for 40 hours spread across 12 different sessions, and there are 14 modules in total. If you subscribe to the masterclass recordings, you get lifetime access, which I think is a huge deal. Back in the day when I was learning SQL Server performance tuning, I wanted access to such content. There were a few options available, very few, and many of them were like annual subscription. I had to renew each time because I was never done in a year. So I would love to watch the content over and over again. And that is why at SQLmaestros.com, all these masterclass recordings, if you subscribe, you get lifetime access, which means you can watch the content anytime, anywhere, as many times as you want. For all of you, the webinar attendees, here is a special 70% discount code, which is there in the window. Just take a quick note of that. It is there in the chat window. It's not available to anybody else. It's 70% off on the masterclass recordings of Jan 2025 batch, lifetime access. Take a note of that. Okay, friends, let's go back now. Let's minimize this and switch over to today's content. SQL Server IO benchmarking. For SQL Server, these resources are super critical. I'm going to call out 4 of them: the CPU, the memory, the IO, and TempDB. All 4 are equally important. SQL Server needs a lot of compute power. It runs a lot of CPU intensive queries and stored procedures. You know that because any database, relational database system is going to be a CPU hogger. Then comes memory. SQL Server would love to put everything in memory, right? So access to memory is the fastest. Yes, the disk is there. We have very fast disks nowadays, but nothing beats memory access. Then comes TempDB, right? TempDB is also a resource because we know that a lot of features and functionalities inside SQL Server implicitly or explicitly depend on TempDB. And that is why TempDB is a critical resource and needs to be optimized all the time. Now comes the most important. According to me, the most important here, all of them are important, but just slight advantage. I would like to give just one additional point to IO. It's all about the data. When you're working with SQL Server, you are either reading or writing. At the end of the day, this is what you're doing, and IO is involved. So IO is super critical. And this is why it is important that when you are tuning SQL Server for fast performance, for better performance, you got to give slightly more attention to IO. And that is why I use this today's webinar, which is IO benchmarking. It's a huge topic. There are so many things we can talk about in IO, about IO benchmarking, baselining. How do you troubleshoot IO? How do you find out those numbers? How do you use those numbers, the captured data, to your benefit to improve query performance, etc. But in today's limited 40 minutes that we have, I want to show you a specific crisp demo. This demonstration is from my masterclass content. In the masterclass content, we speak about IO and we have so many demonstrations for about 4 to 5 hours. That's the focus on IO. So today I'm going to pick up one small demonstration Use this as a template. Use this as a template because you will get a lot of ideas as to how you could replicate what I'm showing you today, how you could replicate that for other things. So straight away, let's get into the content. Of course, we do all of this in masterclass, so I'm going to just skip this and focus on the core concepts. There are a few core concepts that you need to know before we start off with the demonstration. First is IOPS, input output operations per second. This is what you need to know from SQL Server. Like as a SQL Server engine, how many read write operations can it do on per second basis, right? And more the better. Now, one important thing, it is not about SQL Server doing this input output, right? Or these numbers are not for SQL Server. These numbers are for the disks. These numbers are for the disk, probably on the disk on which you have the SQL Server engine installed, and on the disk where you have the data files and the log files, etc. So for each physical disk, you have these counters that you need to benchmark and baseline. Physical disk, which is transfers per second, writes per second, and reads per second. Transfers per second is a cumulative of writes and reads. So this counter will give you the IOPS, input output operations per second. The next one is throughput in megabytes per second. This determines the size of operations. And again, more the better, the bigger the size of operation. So how do you compute that? This is your IOPS into size of operation. This is in terms how thick the IO pipe is at any given point of time. How much data can you send through the IO channel? Then there is another important counter here, average disk queue length. Over a period of time, this counter, this metric is not so important compared to the ones that we are discussing, like IOPS, throughput, and something that we are going to discuss on the next slide. But while you are capturing and monitoring many of these counters, you may want to keep an eye on the disk queue length also. As you know, what do you mean by average disk queue length? Which means how many requests are waiting in the queue to get access to the IO. And of course, you don't want the this queue to be too long. You will always see some requests pending there, but you don't want this to be too long. Now, when you have all these counters, here comes another important, probably the most critical from SQL Server perspective, which is the latency factor. If you look at this definition of latency here, it is a very bookish definition there. Latency is the delay for the rotation of the disk to bring the required disk sector under read-write mechanism. So probably this definition was written when we were so much focused on rotational devices, magnetic disks, etc. In today's world, you know that you have so much of fast storage. So you probably the disk sector, the rotational mechanism, the actuator, the arm, all that will not make sense. It's very simple. The amount of time it takes to fetch the data. It's very, very straightforward. Latency, or simply this one is good enough. Time taken to finish an IO operation. So from the time you start reading the data to the point the last byte is read, that is your latency factor. Remember, it might take some time for the data to render in the client, like for example, Management Studio, which is not one of the fastest client GUI tools you might have used. It takes time for things to render on Management Studio. That time is not computed in latency. Latency is all about IO operation. How do you measure it? So in perfmon, you have physical disk. Under the physical disk object, you have average disk second per read and second per write. So this is for the read and this is for the write. Now, Microsoft SQL Server team has given out some guidelines about the latency factor, and you could just use this as a benchmark as to how good or bad your latency in SQL Server is. Anything less than 8 milliseconds turns out to be excellent. Anything between 8 to 12 is still good. Less than 20 and less than 20 and greater than 12 is fair, but anything beyond 20 milliseconds per read or 20 milliseconds per write is termed to be poor, needs investigation, and you got to do a lot of things. Now, out of all of these, IOPS, throughput, average disk queue length, and latency, I give more attention to the latency factor because the latency factor can quickly give me an indication if my IO is slow, is it average, or is it fast enough. By using these as benchmarks, I can quickly get a sense, a quick glance of what is going on in my SQL server. Now, people always we talk a lot about this perfmon. Perfmon is a great tool. We can use these counters and get our numbers. But today, friends, I will show you how you can track down this number, how you can identify the latency factor from inside SQL Server. Okay, so are we all ready for the demo? Yes, in the chat window, are you all following the concepts? We are done with the theory part and we discussed a few concepts. It's time to get down to the demo. Okay, friends, just to let all of you know, and you will be happy to hear that today we have 218, to be precise, minus 117. Okay, so 217 attendees online. Looks like IO is important to all of you. Typically, we get about 150 to 200. Today, we have crossed over 200, which means these kind of topics are good for you. Yeah. Okay, great. Okay, so what are we doing? We are going to see how you can benchmark the latency factor from inside SQL Server. And as I said, there are a lot of pieces for to IO. I'm going to show you one engineered demo here. Now, if I have to track down the latency factor, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to make the disks slow. I'm going to simulate, do some engineering behind the scenes to make disks slow and fast. And then you can see the numbers from SQL Server Management Studio. And of course, you know what I'm going to do. I'm going to use a dynamic management view and use simple mathematics to get you the latency factor. Okay, let's get started. And as I promised, I am using some content from the masterclass. This is what the masterclass content looks like, friends. 14 modules there. I am going to go inside SQL Server IO internals and tuning. And I'm going to pick up one of the demonstrations from there. So let's open this file. We talked about all of this, right, on the slide. Here is a very simple query. Now I'll tell you, this probably could, you could do better with this workload, with this query, and do a few more maths here to get more meaningful output. But the output that I am going to get is going to be good enough for the purpose of this demo. We are using the DMV, which is DIM IO Virtual File Stats. This is a DMV where you have one record for each data and log file in your SQL Server environment. So you can see there are a lot of user databases out there, system databases, etc. So when you run this, you are going to see a couple of records out there. So you will see that for each database up there, you can see the data file, which is 1, and then you can see the log file, which is file ID 2. So as of now, for each database, we have the log file and the data file. If you want to watch the remainder part of the webinar and all the remaining demos, you can subscribe to the webinar on SQLmaestros.com and get lifetime access to the recorded webinar. All you have to do is just go to SQLmaestros.com, click on the recorded webinar section and get access to all the webinar recordings. There are many of them. Some of these webinars are free and some of them are very nominally priced. So the ones that you're interested in, you can subscribe to them and get lifetime access. Now, because there are so many webinars, subscribing to each webinar might be a bit cumbersome. So we have another option, which is SQL Maestros membership. So the first link on SQL Maestros says join. If you click on that, it will bring you to SQL Maestros membership. Things are very simple. There are 2 membership levels. The first level is free, where you get access to all the free webinars and all our tutorials and demos, more than 200, 300 demos and tutorials. All you have to do is just become a free member. You're paying nothing and you get access to all of them. So you don't have to go and subscribe to each webinar individually. Just become a free member and then explore the free video lobby. So if you go to the video lobby here, there is something called as free content where you get access to all of that. But then all of us are interested in advanced content, isn't it? And that is where premium membership comes into play. So the webinars that are paid, and there are many advanced tutorials and demos. If you want access to all of them, you can become a premium member and pay a nominal price, which is annual membership. Once you do that, you can explore the premium video lobby. If you go to the premium video lobby from here, or just go to the video lobby and click on premium content, you can see all the paid webinars and all the advanced tutorials and demos and get access to all of them with your annual membership. Anyway, choice is yours. There's a lot of content on SQLmaestros.com, and you can also explore the YouTube membership level as well. So you have free content on YouTube channel, and you can also join and become a member of SQL Maestros on YouTube, where you can pay a monthly fee, get access to all the paid webinars and advanced content. So in summary, you can go to SQLmaestros.com and become a member, or you can become a member on YouTube also. Becoming a member on SQLmaestros.com turns out to be a little cost effective with the annual membership in comparison to YouTube monthly membership. But anyway, choice is yours, whichever platform you wish to use. Happy SQL.